And then I start wondering too, this chat GBT thing and the artificial intelligence, because I think there's a pretty big potential for power in these panels, because we're essentially reestablishing
That third
human.
space.
Yes, but why would they, the mysterious they, whoever that exactly is, why would they, couldn't this put a wrench in a lot of their plans? You would think, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I start wondering, is it a coincidence that chat GBT started popping right as these panels started popping, and how many of these viewers are actually the artificial intelligence itself, just
Right. Yeah.
taking
Yeah. Definitely.
all this in? And we know
Yes.
that's going on. We know all this data is being collected. So
Right. Right.
are we training chat GBT on the stream of consciousness? Because they had all our data, but the one thing they didn't have is our stream of consciousness, what's actually in
Exactly.
our heads all the time.
Yeah.
But because of the immediacy of these panels, you're getting sort of a stream of consciousness. And are we
Right.
training the chat GPT? And then what does that mean? What lessons are they getting? They're seeing the shitstorm, right? They're
Yeah.
seeing this
Yeah.
chaos. They're seeing this controversy. And what will that do to this thing that we're making in our image?
I have to really think about that now, that those two moments kind of coincided, because I remember like maybe back last year around July, um, June, all this AI stuff started to come out, like the Mid Journey or the Dolly, and all the other uh, AI stuff was starting to blossom. Then it's like September, and then it just blew up within the last like 3 or 4 months. It's like really blowing up, and like my first thought is like in some ways it reduces people's capacity. Like they become dumber, they become a little bit duller because they're relying on this technology. But the technology also, if you know how to use it, is going to help you kind of expand out in a different way. So there's like this interplay. But then, yeah, one thing about all this technology, it makes me think like I want to try and take the perspective on, because it's easy to just kind of get really like this is gonna be really bad, and like I think it will be really bad. But I also think, what if I'm thinking like now, instead of just having a perspective of like a year or a decade, there are people in our world that have like lineage that goes thousands of years, or at least 100 years, that they can trace their family name back to like Caesar or to Mansa Musa. There are people who have deep historical knowledge of like what's going on, and it makes me wonder like this is a game. Like, what if this is just a long evolutionary process, and this part of it is how who can transform with the technology, who can like adapt with the new technology, and if we ever want to be further in like go to space, interdimensional travel, any of these like out there things, it's like you're going to have to take on much more radical ideas, much more like insane things. And so like maybe this is the first step towards like, can you and I don't, and the whole transhumanism thing is like a little bit like, I don't want to chip on my head, but like I think like, what is this that we have right now? This computer. This is definitely
Already did.
technology that like 100 years ago would be like, you're crazy, you're a black magician or whatever. So I'm wondering, like, it's like this is the next step. It's like which of the population can handle this and integrate it in a healthy way? Because there's going to be a lot of downside, a lot of people that are going to, just become shut-ins, the hikikomori that they say in the Japan, all these guys that,
Mhm.
So I'm like, there's two sides to it, and I'm like I have to only think positive for this. I'm aware that there's a negative, but I'm like I have to think positive, otherwise I'll get doomed into it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. That would be my one critique of sort of this book, is it didn't take that into account, the
Mm,
positive possibilities. And a little bit you see it a little bit, but because I think like on the privacy issue, so if we identify that there's power in privacy, then what we decide to share and what we don't share is where we can start taking back the power. And
yeah.
you said you got a little bit of that relationship stuff, and I'm feeling that a little bit, because people love the radical authenticity,
Mm,
But then once it's out there, it's out there, right?
yeah.
Once I share all the dirty details of my life in a public realm, then it's out there. And I've now given up, yeah, you can find out my government and you can find out, properties that I own or whatever. And you can probably track down where I'm at. You can do all that, but you
Hmm.
can't actually figure out my life story. But that's like the juicy bits people want,
Yeah.
right? But the second I start sharing that, then it's sort of game over. And so,
Hmm.
I think we got to hold on to those parts and understand that power. So, what if we come on here, you know, but what's interesting is then you start being called disingenuous. People start having the expectation. I start getting called disingenuous and lukewarm and milk toast yurt, right? Because I won't tell you exactly what I think about something. I won't,
Right.
go overboard.
Right. Yeah, a lot of my life has been through like the lens of like performing and being ready to eventually do this professionally through like dance and gymnastics. So since I was like maybe 10, I was going to school for dance and gymnastics. Um, and I think like my framework has always been share everything. And I realized, man, I feel like I've been over socialized. And that's not just me anymore. Everyone is being over socialized and said, share everything. And then the thought I have is like the whole privacy thing, Snowden, and well, what do you have to hide? It's like, well, maybe I just need to workshop some ideas in my brain and I don't need to spit everything out that like comes into my mind. There's the element of like refining the thought. And sometimes there's stuff that comes with the thought that like is unnecessary. But I mean, yeah, it's like if you don't share everything, then you're not being genuine. Yeah. I hate it. I hate it so much. It's like I don't have to share anything with you. I'm choosing to share. And like that's the thing for me. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna be an active person and I'm choosing to share this with you. So that way at least you feel like I'm sharing. And then I can keep some stuff to myself. That's like the really juicy stuff. If I don't need to share everything.
Well, not only do they demand that you share everything immediately, they're also going to weaponize any detail you
Yeah.
share about yourself. And to be on some of these panels, and I've been called everything now. I've been called a racist. I've been called today I was being called a liberal Antifa guy, and I don't, that stuff doesn't speak to me at all. I don't see myself in that way at all. And to have like whole crowds of people based on a couple things you said, or you interrupted a person, you interrupted a black woman who was speaking, and now you're the racist because you did that when you never held that in your heart at all.
Right.
And so
Right.
yeah, you demand an immediacy and you want all the facts, and you're going to weaponize everything I say. And then you're also going to weaponize me not saying something. And when you really start communicating with larger groups of people, it really becomes about 50-50 of people telling you the exact opposite things.
It seems like that.
So how do you know? So even if you wanted, which I don't, I'm able to do this because I have a pretty strong sense of self and what
Hmm.
I'm doing and life experiences and my nuclear family. My wife is a wonderful person. My children are incredible. I've set up my life to do this, so it's not really bothering me. But you could see where other people, I mean, who maybe weren't as strong, like that would twist you up so
Big time.
fast, man, and drive you crazy if you try to be a people pleaser out here. But
Yeah.
I think there's an opportunity in all of it too. But we've got to, I'm, it's part of my experiment here. And I like stuff like this, and I like what
Mm,
you're doing. Take these conversations off live, or people that you're actually interested in developing relationships. I've kind of been like seeding this idea. It's okay to talk off live,
yeah.
right? Like we can just talk
Yeah.
like friends on a phone or something. We don't have to put it out there if you just want to talk about whatever. Or another thing I've been doing is like emails.